Hey guys, it's Angel with the Academy Presents Real Estate Investing Rocks. And guess what? You probably guessed it. We have another amazing guest because all of our guests are amazing. Justin Smith and I met a few years ago, and it was a really awesome meeting. And he's gotten to know my husband. They've worked on some underwriting stuff together, and he and I are hoping to work on we're all hoping to work together in the future on some deals. And this is what it comes down to. Like, if you want to be in the space, you want to 0 to 1 it, you better start meeting people and building your team, because if you're all alone, it's too hard to do it on your own. There's too many moving parts. There's too much knowledge you have to have. You're going to have to do it with a team. So, Justin, I'm going to kind of hand it over to you for a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, and maybe we can move from there, or if you want to talk a little bit more about maybe the things you're interested in, or however you want to do that.
Yes, I do. Team Angel, I am happy to be here. Love the energy as always. And I completely agree with you. Real estate is a team sport. No question whatsoever, right? This is not, tennis where you're out there, killing your backhand, your front hand, and I know you have a coach in tennis and that type of thing. And I love tennis, but it is a team sport where there's a use the basketball now, there's a forward, there's a center, there's somebody's bringing up the court, right? You got all the players, right? And you have your coach and you have your backups and so on, but most importantly, you have to know your stuff, and don't be jaded into thinking that your stuff is somebody else's stuff, or your knowledge is lesser or greater than somebody else's knowledge. Just be confident in what you know and then learn more. So thanks for having me on the show, Angel. I definitely enjoy, real estate, and I feel like I was born for this. This is not fly by night for me. I've studied, I've probably been in real estate probably, since, I don't know, like middle school, as a kid. Like my uncles used to build walls and fences, and my grandma's front porch and the driveway, and I was shoveling wet mud, concrete, or digging ditches, or holding up fence posts before they had the little kicker legs that I was the kicker leg. I was holding, boy, just stand right there, So, but quit moving. We got to pull the line, So, but definitely enjoyed it, and the spark really hit me to do, I've always wanted to own, real estate and that type of thing, but the spark for development, which is where I really love, right? Really hit me as a middle school kid, where, in my neighborhood, born and raised right here in the Bay Area, Oakland, California. But there was a barren, strip of land, right? And a developer had come in and put all these Victorian houses on that strip of land. And I thought it was amazing. And I thought it was great that could happen, right? But I was a little dismayed, because that was the field we used to cut across to go to the store, or go to the park, or jump the fence and go to school, whatever the case might be, right? But then all this equipment starts showing up. The green fences came up, and then the foundation starts showing up, and that really just kind of opened my eyes to this whole development thing. And get this, about 3 months ago, about 3 months ago, I actually met the developer responsible for that development.
Shut the front door.
And and I got a picture of him, and I told him that story, and he was like, I do remember doing these scattered site developments around the Bay Area. And I was like, dude, like, you don't know how great this is. And it was a gentleman from my city. He was also African-American as well. But just meeting him and seeing that he was still in that business, and he was still doing things within development to this day. And that was many years ago, right? And just to see that people have that passion, have that love for something, and I kind of fall in that same same category rather, and just enjoy what I do. I love, as my mom used to say, live life learning. And real estate is just something, you know, I got the, you know, went to school for architecture, went to school for construction management, got degrees, and then real estate finance, you know, did all that stuff, you know, that your mother wants you to do to make, you know, make her proud. Put the plaques on the wall, right? You know, but and the degrees, right? But nevertheless, I really enjoy it, and you know, willing to share with yourself, your listeners, and anyone else that you know care to hear me speak.
Well, I think that that's such an awesome experience you got to have, because I think I'm not a big, there's hardly any women in the space, girl power. We need to be on an all girl team. I'm not like that, but I do think it's important that we see people, at least in the beginning, that look like us,
Yeah.
that are doing
Yeah.
it, because it helps us see that it can be done.
That's right.
I can't imagine what it must be like for the first person in their race or their gender to do something, because they are blazing a path that nobody's blazed before.
And in some case, they don't, they may or may not know they're blazing a path, and they may just have a passion for it. B, they may not know that they're inspiring others. Like when I told him, I said, look, man, when you did that project on Adeline Street, right? And he said, man, I did so many projects, I'm not sure I remember that one. And I just explained the whole thing to him, right? And he was just like, oh yeah, I remember. And I did some others, this and that. And I said, dude, and remember the article in the Oakland Tribune when they had you on the front cover and they were talking about this and that? He was like, yeah, I do remember we had got some press. And so, you know, but it's inspiring for me to go through that experience. And then at the same time, it's inspiring for me to go to, you know, middle schools, high schools, and other places and share my story, right? And not to say that, you know, my story is this big important story, but I want others to have the opportunity to channel their passions, right? You know, to get in this industry of real estate, of construction, of development, so on, because it is hard. And so you need to understand, yes, have a passion for it, live through that passion, and be well learned in this space. So, you know, it's just been my thing. You know, some people nerd out on, you know, video games. I'm like, hey, let's go develop something, right? You know, or let's buy some real estate. And they're like, dude, come on, like bring it down a notch. We're playing Call of Duty. So
But I think it's really important. I think when I think about me and Jason, and when we first got started, we both came from families that invested in residential real estate. I say that all the time, but it wasn't necessarily a passion. It was just, this is what people do. You buy real estate if you can. And so that was where we were coming from, is it can create wealth. We're going to do it because that's what we know to do.
Yep.
But then we had our son, he had a rare genetic condition, and all of a sudden there was a driving force. So there became a deeper reason to do it than just to build wealth and take care of our family.
Yeah.
It was more, well, we can't just build wealth and take care of our family. We're going to have to like 10x that to be able to take care of the family and be able to provide for him, and hopefully for a foundation in the future to continue providing for people with rare diseases.
Yeah. And I think that's very, very important. You know, I was listening to an article on the radio earlier today, and it was saying that there was a rise in this country of preterm births. And I heard that story and thought about that story because, you know, my wife and daughter, you know, had that same experience, right? And they were saying, you know, sort of the likelihood of health and other conditions and things like that. But you're right. And I think what it gets down to is find your why. Like if real estate is your love, even if real estate is, because real estate can be trying, you know, dealing with investments, dealing with deals, dealing with capital, dealing with partners, it can be very trying. But I think the core of it is find your why. And that's why I do it. You know, I do it for, you know, my daughter, my son, my wife. You know, I do it for my nephews and my nieces, you know, whether I'm inspiring them or whether I'm just helping them or whether I'm just picking them up, taking them to the park. I do it for that. And so you have to find that other intangible thing that also motivates you when it gets tough. You know, when materials are hard to find, or when you're renovating a kitchen and LVT just goes up like $10 a box. And you're like, oh my God, like that just blew our budget, right? Speaking from experience here. So, but it's important for those that are listening out there to have passion about what you do, but also find your why that may be different or from what you do on a day-to-day or week-to-week or investment basis.
So do you find that your why is always in your mind, or do you have to like break it down sometimes?
No, it's always in my mind.
Okay.
It
I
for
know that's a
me,
really
it's
weird question. I just asked because like sometimes I feel like our why is so big that it's almost too big for me to wrap my head around sometimes. And so I have to like break it down into smaller pieces to be able to really let it propel me.
yeah.
Otherwise, I'll just be like, oh, that's too hard. We're never going to be able to do this. And I'll shut down.
Yeah, I think that my why remains big. It remains connected. It remains tangible. It's like, okay, I do this for X. Now, how I do it and how I will benefit X, you break that down, right? Because, yeah, if your goal is to sort of, rid childhood diseases or improve preterm birth or something like that, and that's kind of your why, and that's what gets you going, right? Then you need to understand what it is that you do on a day-to-day basis that might contribute to that particular larger goal, right? So I think whether or not it's something tangible like, hey, you want to donate 5% of your proceeds or your investment dollars to a charitable organization, that could be a little start, whether it's whether whatever the organization might be, right? So it's just having those little pieces that you can kind of contribute and say, you know what, at the end of the day, even if I make just $100 on this deal, I'm going to take $5, $10 and give it to that charitable organization. So having a tangible piece that you can break off kind of helps with making your why not so big and kind of unwielding, right? That'd be my recommendation there.
Well, no, and that's a really cool way to look at it, because like if I could instead say, hey, due diligence, I'm doing due diligence because that's going to get me one step closer to this goal.
Yep.
And look at it that way instead of saying due diligence. Okay, we have to do due diligence because that gets us closer to closing this property.
Right. No,
So
it
I
gives
think
you
it's like
that goal. Yeah.
it's looking at it as isolated pieces as opposed to these are all necessary steps to get to the goal. And I think
Yeah.
that's the disconnect that I've been experiencing. So you may have just totally fixed it for me. But I really, I do. I think that's been my disconnect is I see it all as isolated. Like, okay, we're looking at this property. Okay, we need to get our financing lined up. We need to start talking to investors. Okay, we need to get who's our legal team. Okay, we need to take care of due diligence. Are we looking at the lines, or are we just saying, hey, it's a 1960s property, we're going to have to replace the lines? It's like,
right.
what are we doing? And I see those all as isolated events instead of stopping and thinking, no, each one of these things is happening because this property is another step towards our ultimate goal of eventually having a foundation that supports families and
Right.
people with rare diseases.
Right. And if you say people, this foundation for people with rare diseases requires the support of, let's just say, $30,000 a year. Well, if I'm contributing 10% of my deals to that, okay, well, then that means I need to be doing X type of deals that has this large dollar volume that I can take 30% out of that. So what's 30 divided by 10%? Oh, well, that's 300, and whatever that number is, right? That may be $300,000 or whatever the case might be, right? And so then you're like, okay, well, then I have to do deals that bring in, or have enough deals that add up to, at the end of the year, $300,000 of income if I'm going to put $30,000 toward this thing over here, right? And so those are just kind of ways of putting, goals can help us put tangible things, especially if they're SMART goals, and SMART is an acronym, but making a goal palatable, making a goal possible and tangible, when we make it measurable, when we, put time to it and those type of things. So, but yeah, that's it. It's just me in a nutshell.
Yeah, and I don't remember what SMART stands for. I'm going to actually look it up because I know a lot of people like it.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on.
That's for sure.
SMART acronym.
SMART goals.
SMART goals is an acronym for.
There you go.
A little laggy here. Hold on.
Specific.
Yes, specific, measurable, achievable,
relevant,
and time-based.
That's right. And
you got
that's
them
the
all.
schedule component that is very important. So, I once, and I'm back in that space, taught at a community college. And it was a class on these kind of concepts. It was a group that was a transitional sort of transition from maybe non-working, from at life adversity, to those trying to get into the workforce, right? And that was one of the things that we talked about was SMART goals, and being able to set those goals and how we can achieve those and let them not be daunting, but start small, So, but yeah, that's that's been. I don't know if we got off the topic of real estate journeys, but
but we didn't, because the thing is like, once you step into the entrepreneurial lifestyle, it's not a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah,
it is your life, and every piece of your life is a part of what you're doing as an entrepreneur to be successful.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's really a way to get off topic when we're talking about the things that we're doing to make ourselves successful, or to help us propel forward, or stay in mental awareness of what our why is, what's propelling us. I think all of those things, it's all real estate related, because it's all part of our entrepreneurial path.
Yeah. And I think you're right about that. It's our path. And I think that everyone should be, and I said this earlier, sort of confident in their path, right? And follow the path that they're either chosen, given, or that they're passionate about, and weave in all of these concepts. Because what's different on the entrepreneurial side of thing is, you're not necessarily punching the clock, right? You might not be beholden to a particular expectation or a particular boss or what have you, right? But yet and still, you have to set some levels of expectation. You got to, it might be okay, our family income needs to be X, so then I need to produce X number of deals, or have a certain amount of income coming in. You might have little ones, and you might think about, okay, benefits and those type of things, might be a concern of yours, right? And then other factors. But as an entrepreneur, it is definitely a very rewarding space and a very rewarding road. And you have to define what that reward is, so that you can define your own happiness. So
yeah, no, absolutely. And it's I don't know, it's you're going to be putting in more hours, but it's so much more enjoyable that you're not the same kind of exhausted. You're exhausted.
No question.
You are exhausted 24/7.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of exhausted.
Yeah. No, you're right. Hashtag true story. You might even wake up at 4 a.m. and just sit there thinking, did I only put in, my yield on cost did not seem as high. Like, what did I do with those rent? Like, and just kind of underwriting in your head, right? Or, man, I talked to that broker last week. I wonder if he's going to call me back. And I saw her representing this property. I wonder if she's the right partner to have. Like, I mean, and it's 4 a.m. So, You know, it's an interesting space. And then for those that do have a W-2, right? It's interesting because, you know, you have this sort of left brain, right brain type of thinking, you know, this sort of rich dad, poor dad, if you will, sort of concept of thinking about how you build, you know, wealth, generational wealth, time and money and income and all these different factors. So, you know, that's a tougher, I don't know if it's a tougher road than entrepreneur, but that's definitely another road that many of us face. You know, I'm sure many of your partners, or even, you know, many of your LP, you know, they're looking for passive income, you know, because eventually they want to fulfill their why, and they may want to step out and be a GP at some point in time and get away from, you know, sort of the LP side of that. Although I'm pretty sure many of your investors can say, hey, they love the mailbox money, but you know, it's that in itself, that W-2 world and that passive income world can also be something that's a journey, and should not be undervalued or misunderstood.
No, absolutely. And part of it too is like, you know, we were talking about it earlier. It's getting a little scarier. Like, who are we going to get involved with? Who are we going to partner with? And, you know, what does their past look like? What is their
Yeah.
future going to look like? What do I actually know about this person?
Yeah.
And I think that we're going to hit this time where we're going to have to be really choosy about
Mm-hmm.
who we let in our circles, and who we let be a part of those like inner circles. And I heard
Mm-hmm.
something really cool, probably about a year and a half ago, 2 years now, but it
Mm-hmm.
was a lady talking, and she said that we have to be really mindful about who we let in our inner circles,
Mm-hmm.
and we also have to be willing to audit those inner circles
Right.
and decide who gets to stay in them and who we need to go ahead and move away from.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that can also be a really big part of not just your whys and your journey, but the direction of your journey.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you talking about getting to meet the developer, like that just like really solidified you want to be a developer. This is your space. This guy inspired you. And I probably relit your passion for being a developer.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. And I think that was really important, in terms of that whole cycle, and then understanding that the troubles and tribulations that I'm going through, you know, we talked about that, and he's like, yeah, I have and still have some of those same concerns and issues, right? So that was a key thing for me, in that meeting. But I want to go back to what you were just saying about know, like, and trust, right? Or at least, I don't know if you were saying in that way, but I want to add something to that, you know, to the, you know, because, you know, there's LPs and people who want to invest with us or work with us and so on. And it's commonly known, and I first heard that, and I can't think of the podcaster that said it, but they were like, okay, you know, to raise capital or to get partners and so on, you have to have this know, like, and trust. And I'll add a D to that, and that D is know, like, trust document, right? Because, you know, there needs to be some level of sort of substantiation of why you know, like, and trust them, you know, because know, like, and trust can be based on familiarity. It can be based on, you know, hometown hero. It can be based on, you know, sort of a family bond, and, you know, they know your cousin, uncle, brother, sister, nephew, so if they know them, I know them, you know, and that type of thing. But I think we do have to get to the point where we can ask those real questions, and do two things when we ask those questions of validity, of documentation. We have to do two things. We have to hear it, and we have to read it. And what I mean by that is, a lot of people tell you a lot of good things. Hey, I've invented sliced bread. Okay, that's fine. Well, can I read the patent? You know, if you don't mind, like, can I see the bread patent? Like, what type of yeast did you use? You know, and can I read that? Right. And so I think it's important now, you know, in this world of social media, in this world of hype, in this world of sort of glamorizing everything that's sparkly and big and this and that and this and that we hear what you're saying, and then we read what you're saying, right? and that's no knock against anyone, but if someone are who they are and say what they say and do what they do, then you should be able to read what they also do as well. And that helps just kind of complete the circle, right? And you say, yes, I'm going to call Angel on her next deal. And when Lauren Capel puts out something, I'm going to go to one of the, events. I'm going to, listen to the speakers. And then I'm also going to read their literature. I'm going to go to their websites. I'm going to check out different things, right, that they've done in the past, right? So I think that validation is very important. I think we need to do that because, we all invest, our time, energy, and money into opportunities for that why. And we don't want to let that why down. So we do need to do our own due diligence and our own research. Right.
Absolutely. And I'm thinking too, like when you're talking about like know, like, and trust and then document. And I think about like the powers of persuasion. It's is it Cialdini. I don't know how you say his name. It's like Cialdini, Cialdini, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But he talks about the powers of persuasion. And one of those powers is consistency.
Yep.
And like when you're saying document, people, read their literature, but you also have to read the person.
Yep.
And is that person consistent from day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year?
Mm-hmm.
Are they the same person from the day you met them to the day that you're getting into a deal with them?
Right.
And I'm not saying, have they not grown? Did they stay stagnant? I mean, at the base level, are they still the same person? It's
Yeah.
like I've met up with friends I went to college with, and they're like, holy moly, you are the exact same person. Well, of course I'm the exact same person. Who else would I be? But
Yeah.
it's deeper than that. It's, and people change. The friends that I've met, I mean, I'm thinking of one in particular, and people change, but that base person was the same.
Right. Right.
And so I think that there needs to be a consistency there of person, of character, and just of their word. Does the
Yep.
person stand by their word? Do they consistently stand by their word? And if they have to deviate from their word, is it substantiated?
Right. Right. And I think you're right about that because life throws you curveballs and you may have to deviate, right? But are you considerate of those that entrusted that trust, A, and B, are you communicating that, right? The power of persuasion is definitely something that might have brought you to that person, but then consistency will of character and actions on both sides will keep that relationship going, right? So that's a very key word, and I thought where you were going with that was sort of the social media content and consistency, but just in general in terms of
Well,
relationship.
social media too, but social media can also be a falsehood
Mm-hmm.
because people can look amazing on social media. They can
Mm-hmm.
look like everything they touch turns to gold.
Yep.
And so you find yourself in a deal with them, and it turns out that everything they touch does not, in fact, turn to gold.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it turns to gold, it's only going in their pockets and not their investors.
Yeah.
And that can be really hard. So
It can be, and people, social media can always, can be in some cases a place where people put their shiny objects in their and their successes and their wins, but we don't often hear, the adverse side of things. We don't often hear that, and so in terms of my social media presence, I try to take that to heart and try to mix it up, not only showcase wins in that, but also try to educate. I have this series called hashtag Construction Tip Tuesdays, where it's a matter of showing and delivering information to people about real estate deals, about development deals, about different things that you should think about along the way, right? Who would ever think about something like not painting your corridors or rubber treads in your corridors or in your stairwells, right? Those are different concepts. Yeah, you might think, oh, not paint the corridor. No, we're going to paint the corridor. But should we paint the stairwells? Well, how many square foot is that? How much money do we save by doing that? Do we need to paint the stairwell? Do we need to put carpet in the stairwell, right? Does it need to have base? Does it need to have stair treads? What's the level of safety that we need to have to achieve a safe and exiting space? But how lavish does that need to be if it's purely functional? And if your development is tight for whatever reasons, can you forego some of those components, right? And that's just a small example. And I think I did a construction tip Tuesday on stairwells. But I try to present information in social media that helps others, that might present a topic that you might not have thought of, like walls, for an example. Does everyone know there's type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4, and type 5 walls? Like where 5 is like the smoothest wall ever, right? It looks pristine. You see it in hotels, you see it in exclusive and luxury, high luxury apartments and things like that. But
I don't know, I got orange peel on mine.
Orange peel, right? So you got type 3 walls. Nothing wrong with that, right? Orange peel. And then there's orange peel texture that has like if you're in Colorado, the orange peel is not really orange. It's a slate stonish looking orange peel, and that's what they know. But then you go to Texas or California, and the orange peel looks like a true orange peel. Like so. But there's different kinds, and it might equate back to the cost of labor and the cost of that particular line item in your construction budget. It might be more expensive to do a smooth wall than it is to do an orange peel wall. But getting back to social media and this concept of conveying information is I like to present information that might be helpful to the listener, helpful to the audience out there about different things. And each week I try to highlight something new and different. So for those listeners that are out there who have an idea or want to learn about something, please go to my website realequity.com or info@realequity.com. Send me an email with a topic or a question that says, hey, I'm dealing with this problem. How would you deal with it? And then I'll make it a construction tip Tuesday. I'll even shout you out, throw a at whomever. But we'll love to do that, and we'll love to help others on their journey.
Yeah, well, no, and that's like a whole different level of consistency, right? So there's like this tangible consistency of, if you're going to start something, you keep doing it.
Yep.
So like if I'm going to do a post every day of the week, then I'm doing a post every day of the week, and I better stick with it. I used to do self-help weekends. No, what did I call them? Self-work weekends.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of fell off the face of the earth because I was getting more real. It was a little harder.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I missed a week, I missed 2 weeks, and then I missed 3, and I just didn't pick them back up.
It's hard. Life happens. Life happens on the way to the river, right? Life happens on the way to the grocery store. So, we have to give ourselves that space. But you're right, because I've done construction tip Tuesday, and I have I don't know. I think I've been doing it for a year and a half now. So every Tuesday I try to make sure but it's 52 of them. So I just have to make sure I do 52 of them. So I try to, similar to Jason, try to work things down to numbers. I'm not a big numbers person, but I do understand the values. So I kind of flip back and forth, right? But, if I can do 52 of them and deliver a consistent educational message 52 times in a year to people who want to know about certain real estate topics or certain development topics or certain construction topics, then I feel like I've contributed. So I got to do my 52.
Well, and that just, we were talking before we started recording about when the first couple of summits we did, it was hard, and I wanted to give up. Like, I think in my heart of hearts, I wasn't going to give up.
Mm-hmm.
But at the outset, emotionally, I was done. I was ready to give up. And I had to be talked off the ledge on the first summit. Peely Rusi did it. The second summit, John Kasman did it.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget him telling me, if I just help one person, that's all I need.
Mm-hmm.
I just need to help one person. And so even though you're saying, it's 52, I only have to do 52. But if you help one person,
mm-hmm.
it makes it all worth it.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of it kind of marks the dichotomy of two different, I guess, groups of thought. There are the people out there that are very much got to do this job, grind, grind, grind. Okay, next job, job after that, job after that. And it's very how much work, how much I get back is based on how much work I put forth.
Right.
And then I think there's this other school of thought, which is kind of where I'm at, which is like, if I can build up the relationships I need, my growth pattern is going to take off and it's going to go exponential. And it
Yeah.
won't be so dependent upon what my hustle is, because I know my reality. My hustle is not the same every day. And there are times when I'm really down and it's hard
Yeah.
to be a straight hustler on those days, you know? And so I think that we have to look at ourselves and look at not our ethics necessarily, but who we know ourselves to be in the way that we deal with life,
Yep.
and realize that we have to pick the school of thought that fits us better. Neither one is better than the other one.
Right.
There are
Right.
people out there that are very much hustlers that say that it's easier than trying to do what I'm doing. And I look at what they're doing, I'm like, holy night, they're working all the time. It's always the hustle. It's always the hustle, always the grind. And
Yeah.
that is overwhelming to me.
Yeah. Yep.
But I don't think one is better than the other. I just think you need to figure out where you fit
Yeah.
and go full force into it.
I think so too. And in that full force, know that a river changes directions as well. A river twists and turns. So that full force can be the full force of your energy, your passion, and your education and so on. But just know there may be a rock and you got to roll to the left or roll to the right, or there may be a dip and you got to drop down, or they may go up a little bit, or the elevation might change, or somebody might stick their foot in the river, right? You know, and so on. So just know, follow that direction, and know that there may be divots, pushes, and pulls and different things, along that way, and give yourself the pat on the back, or the room to make those adjustments, right? And sometimes you may have, to cry it out. Sometimes you may have to celebrate it, but it's part of that journey.
Yeah, no, and you say something really important there. Like, sometimes you need to celebrate it. I think that we as a society don't celebrate the small things. Or sometimes the small things are weird and kind of misplaced.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say what I'm thinking on that because I don't want to step on toes, but I know that, like, when we got our first deal done, we get on the phone with our coach. He's like, so do you feel different? I'm like, no, not at all. And the thing he said that was so profound to me is he said, you have to make it special. You have to do something that makes this event special.
Yeah.
So that when it happens again and you redo something special for this event, you are making the fact that you closed a deal special.
Yeah.
Because I didn't feel any different. I felt some relief. Oh, thank God we got it closed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because 0 to 1 sucks. But other than that, it wasn't like I was throwing a party inside. Woohoo. It was just like, oh, because it was a phone call. It was literally a phone call. We received your money. You're closed. I didn't even pick it up. Jason picked it up.
Yeah, you're right. But we do have to find time to, celebrate our successes, and triumphs, because we work hard at it, because it's one more step in the direction of your why. Right? It's one more piece that's that moves in that direction and solidifies why you're doing it, or that the process is working. And then once you start getting that turning, they say the power of the first deal, right? Because the second deal is coming and the next deal is coming, and so on, right? And so having that first deal, just says, oh, okay, I'm in this. I'm in the power of the first, right? Wow, okay, this is happening, and it happened for me in that same way. And then you start to learn, okay, what you need to do number 2 and to do number 3, and so that the next success is celebrated because it's number 2 and because of the other facets that you may or may not have encountered in number 1. So, yep, you got it. You got to celebrate the little things.
Yeah, and honestly, it is all of these things that come together that make the path that we've chosen to be entrepreneurs and be on our own. All of the, like, okay, so when you have a W-2, a lot of these things are kind of celebrated for you. And you may be thinking there's no way, but your yearly bonus, your yearly review, your 6-month review, those things are celebrated in some way or form. Sometimes it's with a raise, sometimes it's with a title change, maybe it's with a bonus, but
Mhm.
you get little celebrations. Well, as entrepreneurs, nobody is giving us bonuses or or celebrations
Yeah,
or
you got to celebrate, you know, on that one day when you do that one deal, you got to, you know, pop the cork or take somebody out to dinner or, you know, have your favorite cupcake, you know, you know, whatever the case might be.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to do something or it's
Yeah.
never gonna be special.
Yeah. True indeed. True
Man, that's a
indeed.
sad way to think about it.
Hey, well, you know, but there are other ways, you know, there are other ways people celebrate. You know, and they may do it in their own way. I think you just need to, you know, have some way to A, celebrate, and B, say thank you and be thankful, right? You know, I try to do that, you know, every day in terms of getting up, you know, being thankful, you know, saying my prayers, you know, doing my exercises, you know, and other things that I do in the morning is sort of part of this morning ritual, because you know that next day is not promised. But you know when you do have that day, that's another opportunity for you to get out and do exactly what it is that you want to do or what your passions have led you to do. So
Yeah, no,
I think you got to
absolutely.
celebrate the day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that there are a lot of people in this space that share that same they share that same vision, they share those same thoughts because we're not the norm. What are we're the 5% of weirdos out there that have decided that we can make it on our own. Um, so it's that when it comes to like auditing that inner circle, realize that your inner circle needs to be the people that are either where you want to be or you support one another 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not saying that you should be the smartest person in the room or that y'all should all be just as smart. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that you need to surround yourself with the people that you want to be like
Mm-hmm.
or people that have achieved more than you and you want to eventually end up where they are.
Yeah.
But when you do that, you eliminate a lot of the naysayers. One of the hardest things for me was realizing that some of my closest friends were never going to support what I was doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't understand why I would leave teaching.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sucked. Yeah, the administration sucked. It was hard. It was toxic. But why are you leaving? I'm like, because it sucks, because it's hard, because it's
It's
toxic.
talk. Yeah. Yeah.
Above and beyond that, we had already replaced my income
Mm-hmm.
with real estate.
Yeah.
I was teaching because I love to teach. And when it became too much, I had the ability to step away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if you're in a W-2 and you're like, I could never do it on my own, I just suggest start little, start trying to build some financial wiggle room because it does two things. Number one, it lets you do your job from your heart and soul and
Mm-hmm.
not from your tie to the paycheck.
Yep.
But
Yep.
number two, if things get toxic, you have options.
Right. 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 And I think that's important. You have to, you know, have that out, if you can. You know, not everyone can, but try to create that out, and try to look for these opportunities. And I really appreciate what you do in terms of educating others, in terms of, you know, having your summits, and having your podcasts and other vehicles where you can teach people, hey, here are some options. Here's some other things that you can do. Here's, you know, sharing your story, right? You know, here's what, you know, you've done, and here's where you've been, and you know, you can work and do both, and then you can transcend that if you so choose. If it's a place that is toxic, or it's a place, it might be a place you love, you might actually enjoy it, but you enjoy, you know, your summers off more, or you enjoy the fall off, right? Hey, you know, I remember when I was, you know, younger, I used to think, man, it'd be great to work like 9 months out of a year, and that's it. And back then I didn't know what or how or what how I was going to achieve that, but not quite there yet, you know, because actually I love to stay busy with certain things, but I'm thinking like, hey, you know, what does that look like, right? So that's another one of those, you know, those whys. I need to keep that one in the forefront of my mind because but it'd be great to work 9 months out of you. Just kind of take 3 months off whenever you want to. Just say, okay, I've done this deal, done this, done that, closed on that, didn't want to do that, not going to underwrite that. It's in that 3 month window. I'm out of here. I'm done. Moving to Colorado, you know, moving to, I don't know, DC, moving to Florida, whatever the case may be. So
Well, and I think, you know, like there may be people listening to this thinking, well, they haven't really talked about real estate at all. But I think when you dig deep into it, what you find out is all of your biggest accomplishments start in your head first.
they do.
And if you can't get your head sorted out, none of the other stuff, well, I'm not gonna say none of it's gonna happen, but it's gonna be harder.
Mhm.
And Justin, I don't know if you've ever thought of yourself as Mr. Mindset Guru, but you've been doing some amazing talking about stuff. You helped me with some breakthroughs. But I think there's a lot of people out there that are like, man, screw the mindset. That's a bunch of fluff. I want the meat and potatoes. But they don't understand that the mindset piece of it is what gets everything else going.
It does. It really does. And I think that's a very important piece. I mean, you know, you have to have your mindset right. And then you have to have your mindset right, I think. And then secondarily, you also have to have those, you mentioned this a moment ago, those in your sphere, in your orbit, to have supporting and like mindsets. Now, they don't have to all be in real estate, you know, whatever the case, but positive in some way, form that supports your mindset. So protecting your mind, and those are and protecting your mind from yourself and from those around it, because you can damage your own mind just by having negative thoughts, right? So you got to protect your own mind. Then you also have to protect your own minds from those that are out there. Some people, you know, just don't get invited to the party. Some people will not come in the front door. Some people don't need to be in your sphere of influence because you're protecting your mind. You know, you're protecting your mentals. You know, you're protecting that future that you want, or that day that you want, right? And so I think your listeners should really keep that in perspective, that you're protecting your mind and you're protecting yourself from other elements outside that can, I mean, you ever have a good day and somebody comes in and just ruins it because they just, like, you know, drop mud all over your story or mud all over whatever you think. You're just like, oh man, my day sucks. Oh, good grief, that's just horrible, right? And it may be a situation where they may be in some detriment or some emergency, and I'm not talking about those type of situations because those can be tough too, right? But I'm talking about people who can just be negators, you know, just negators, just. I mean, I don't even know if that is that one of the Transformer creatures. Negator, dun dun dun. But
Emotional vampires.
is that a vampire? But you know, can just kind of bring you down, you know,
Suck the life right out of you.
right out of you. Like, man, my cup was running over with the best lemonade ever. And now you're just stuck with, you know, seeds. But you have to protect yourself from that. And I think protecting your mindset, and then having the right mindset, and then setting some of the other things that we talked about earlier in this conversation, smart goals, knowing your why, you know, not hanging around negators, knowing, you know, low, liking, trust, and document, and those type of things. Hear what a person say, know what a person say, read what a person says, right? Because there's a lot of people out there with great speech, and they can talk you onto a boat to Malaysia, right? And next thing you know, you're like, hold on, we're in the dock of the bay right outside of Crummy Town. How did I get here? I thought we were going on a magical trip to Malaysia, right? So you do have to protect yourself in many regards. So
Yeah. No, and one of I you know, we talk about who's in your circle of friends. I have a very close friend that she supports me even though some of the ways we think are completely different. So she's like a lot of teachers. She's pretty liberal. I'm not as liberal. And so like at that part, we're not going to agree as much. But when it comes to, she was an author and was supporting herself through her by being an author at one point. And so
Mhm.
she's been an entrepreneur. And even though she's teaching now, she understands what I'm doing. And she
Mm.
understands that that's where my heart is, and that that's what I want to do to support my family.
Yeah.
And this is what my husband wants to do to support his family.
Mhm.
And so she has been really supportive. Whereas a lot of my other friends that were also teachers, they just weren't.
Mhm.
They didn't understand it. And so they were those people that were like, oh, why are you going to do that? You're just going to fail. Or what if you mess up? Or you're walking away from this paycheck? Like, well, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's that you're walking away from the security and from
Mhm.
away from this, I guess, the American dream. It's the only thing
Mhm.
people know. You'll go to college, get your job, work till you're about to fall over, and then
Yeah.
retire. And so that's what they're really tied to. And so they don't understand and they can't support. But everybody in your circle, like you were saying, may not be in real estate. They may not all be entrepreneurs. They may not all be super wealthy.
Yep.
But
Yep.
maybe they have this mindset that just quit, or this happiness, or this content. It's
Yep.
something you want, right?
Yep.
And so
Yep.
you've got all of these components in your circle that are gonna eventually make up who and what you are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's not that you won't be the same person that you were before. It's that you've grown to also include those pieces too. So at your core, you're going to be the same person, but now
Right.
you've also been able to incorporate all of these other pieces of the people in your circle and what they've been able to give you.
Right. Right. No, you're exactly right about that. I mean, man, this has been a great conversation. Yeah. I know your listeners are like, well, they like this is where are we going with it? But you're right. Protect your mind, protect your future, know your why, um, know what you want to do. And if you don't know what you want to do, continue to learn, live on live through your passions. I mean, many of these things. I mean, maybe Angel, we should just write a book. Is that where we're going with this?
Follow your dreams.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
No,
I'm pretty,
yeah,
pretty
it's
sure that's a
hard. It's just,
yeah.
and every time I hear somebody say, oh, mindset is fluff, it's almost like, what did Tinkerbell say? Every time somebody says they don't believe in fairies, a fairy
Mhm.
dies. So it's like every time I hear somebody say, mindset's just fluff, it's like a part of me dies. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so not true.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I don't remember the day it happened, but I remember the day I noticed.
Hmm.
I remember the day I noticed that I wasn't thinking small anymore.
Mm. Yeah.
Because
And that's
I remember who I was in conversation with,
mhm.
and I remember what was going on. And I was like, wow. Because before I would have done the same thing. I would have looked at the form online. It says there's no more spots. I guess we're not going. But
Mhm.
instead, what I told my friend was, I said, look, it says there's no more spots. But let's go anyway. It's a 2 hour
Mhm.
drive. I'll pay for the gas.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a lot harder to tell us no when we're standing right there in front of them.
Hmm. Hmm.
I said, and if they do, guess what? We're going to go shopping instead.
Is that the backdrop of life? Like you go somewhere, you do something, yay. Well, there's always shopping.
Like, and then I came back and I said, and if this is something we really want to do, let's contact them and see if they'll do a clinic in our town
Mhm.
instead of us having to drive 2.5 hours to the Dallas Fort Worth area
Yeah.
to go to this clinic that's being put on in XYZ location. Let's see if they'll do it in our
Right.
town.
Right.
And when
Right.
I
No,
looked
that.
back on it, I was like, wow. Because I mean, I've never been one to accept no,
Mhm.
but that was beyond not accepting no.
Yeah.
Because that was like, okay, so I'm not gonna accept this no, but I'm also gonna say, if I still have to face a no, I'm still gonna get my yes. It's just gonna be on different terms.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
that was the day I realized that my mindset had changed.
Yeah. 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 No, that's a very powerful story. Is realizing when that mindset changes. Um, I'm sure many of your listeners probably have had that that shift paradigm shift moment. And if you hadn't, then still stay true to what you're doing. because it'll come, and it'll come when you either least expect it, or when you say something or you repeat something and go, oh, wow, oh, wow. Like, and it doesn't have to be something where you're celebrating. Hey, what is the mindset moment? Yeah, no, I mean, it just might be that day or that time, or that opportunity, or that thing where you say, you know what, I'm gonna go, so. But
Now,
yeah.
it turns out that when we went, there were still spots open. This guy's funnel was broken.
Mhm.
And so it turned out there were still spots. We were still able to participate. But
Yeah.
looking back on it, it would have been just as easy to say, damn, we missed it. I guess we'll try again next year.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you can't, sometimes you gotta take a step. Sometimes you have to take a step off that ledge, you know, and it may seem like there's no road there, right? But your mind allows you to create that road and create that path. And next thing you know, you're not just taking one step, you're taking 2 steps and 3 steps and 4 steps. Before you know, you've grown a whole mountain behind you, right? And on a whole pathway before you. So that's thanks for sharing that. That's awesome stuff.
Absolutely. And maybe everybody else out there already knows nothing's impossible, but that was my moment when I really saw that nothing's impossible.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I forget it. When Jason and Julianne were at Philmont, I forgot that nothing's impossible. I thought my world was burning down around me. That's why I called it the burning. Everybody I know that's heard my story says, oh, was that the burning? Like they even call it it was hard, but there was that moment in time where I had that absolute realization that nothing is impossible.
Mm-hmm,
And you do not
mm-hmm.
have to accept no as the answer. You may have to accept no as the answer today, but tomorrow starts over.
Yep. Good stuff. Awesome.
So, wow, this was a really deep conversation and it was awesome. And thank you so much for being here and for just sharing your story and sharing your knowledge and your experiences. And again, just being here because this was amazing. This
Yeah.
was really, really awesome.
Well, the pleasure is all mine, and I really appreciate you having me on. And like I said, if you need any other help, or with your listeners, if they have a question, they can reach out to me. If you have an event, you need somebody speak on the small topics, or just sweep the place up afterwards. I'm there. I'll be a support to the Angel team. So
Well, thank you for being my friend.
thank you.
And guys, for those of you out there, this was an amazing, amazing, amazing time. And I hope that you get a chance to listen to all of it. And until next time.